Confidence is something you definitely need in the kitchen, but confidence in using your tools is even more important, especially when it comes to good knife skills. Good knife skills are the foundation of all good cookery skills, and it's the first thing that all budding cooks and chefs should learn. We're going to cover off a few basic rules before we demonstrate some chopping skills. First, we need to make sure we have the right knives. You only really need 3 basic knives to prepare most foods in the kitchen. A chef's knife, a paring knife, and a serrated bread knife, like these. They don't need to be expensive, but they do need to be sharp and have handles with a good grip. Next, make sure your knife is sharp. A sharp knife is much safer to use than a blunt one. Now we have to make sure we're holding the knife correctly. Your thumb and forefinger should rest in front of the handle, directly on the blade. It's a little uncomfortable to start with, but it provides much better control and balance. We also need a stable board to chop on. Place a dampened paper towel on your worktop, and then your chopping board on top, and then you've got a nice stable base to work on. Now remember to use different chopping boards for raw foods and ready-to-eat foods. Practice makes perfect. Once you master how to chop correctly, it will make all other veg prep a piece of cake. When chopping, fingers should always be tucked away and under the knuckles like this, using a claw grip when holding food while chopping. The knuckles will then help guide the blade and protect the fingers from being chopped. When using a chef's knife, you can rest the tip of the blade on the chopping board and use a rocking motion, back and forth, giving you the most control of the knife. Don't rush chopping. Take your time, do it correctly. The more you practice, the better you'll get. Chopping an onion correctly is probably the single most important skill to master in the kitchen. It's one of the staple vegetables and used in almost all savoury dishes. Cut the onion in half through the root. Don't remove the root, as it will hold the layers of the onion together and make it much easier to chop. Now remove the skin using your paring knife. Once you've removed the skin, place the onion half on the chopping board, flat side down to prevent it from rolling around the board. Now use your knife to cut evenly through all the layers from top to bottom. So then, using your claw grip, hold the onion together and cut widthways a couple of times. Okay. Now hold the onion together using your claw grip, your fingers tucked out of the way. Use your rocking motion and cut the onion into dice. Now stop just before you get to the end of the root, just to stop you cutting yourself. And there you have it, perfectly diced onions. So let's look at preparing a piece of meat, like this pork fillet. Now you can see it's got some tendons, some connective tissue just here. Now because we're going to cook this quickly and at a high temperature, it's not going to have a chance to break down. So we need to remove this before cooking. So we just get our small paring knife, slide it under the connective tissue or tendons and slide it along. Okay. If there are any large visible pieces of fat, just remove them too. Now we're going to thinly and evenly slice the pork. We want the pieces to be evenly sized so they cook at the same pace. Now look at which way the grain is running. These are the muscle fibres. We want to cut against the grain in order to shorten those muscle fibres and make the meat easier to chew and more tender. Again, you can use your claw grip, fingers out of the way, knuckles used to guide you, and just slide your knife through the meat. Let the blade do the work. So now a cooked piece of Scotch beef sirloin steak. Slicing it before serving is a great way to make an expensive piece of meat go a long way. Make sure the meat hasn't been overcooked and let it rest for at least 5 minutes. Now the meat should be sliced against the grain to shorten the muscles and make it more tender. So that was just a couple of tips. The key is keep practicing. There's always something that can be chopped at home. So just remember, take your time and be safe.